Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Get ready to be inspired, hear success stories, and learn tips and principles for bringing out the best in everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Rue, and this is Human Potential at Work. Today, my guest is Len Harac, and he is the publisher of Exceptional Parent Magazine, which I've actually been reading for many years. And so, when a good friend of ours, Richard Schutzberg, introduced us, I was like, "Oh, you definitely got to come on the program and tell the audience more about what you're doing." Len, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so Len, tell us more about Exceptional Parent Magazine. How did it start? Because you've been doing it for a few years. Because I know that I'm not sure how long you've been doing it, but I know I've been aware of the magazine for several years.
Well, Exceptional Parent Magazine, amazingly, is 50 years old. And
Wow.
I took it over. Yeah, 50 years old. And I took it over about 3.5 years ago as the publisher and also the chief operating officer to try to, it had some, its readership has been loyal over the years, but it diminished. And I took it over in an attempt to build it back up to what it should be. It's really a resource for any family that has a special needs member. It started out being just exceptional parent for, going to parents of children with special needs, but we've ramped it up to any family member with special needs, from a child to an adolescent to a military vet returning with PTSD to an adult with Alzheimer's and dementia. And when I took it over, because the magazine is more of a resource than an entertainment magazine, I built a website and archived the past issues so people could, reference the older issues, because the information is not really dated. And we turned it back into a monthly publication, and 99% of the people read it electronically, and a subscription is free. And that the plan is that the subscription will always be free.
And it's, magazines are different now. I mean, especially content and data is so different. But I still, I still like magazines. There's something fun about a magazine. You get it, and it might be my age, but you get it, and it's all bright and shiny and fun. But and you're a publisher, so how it seems like this business must much as it just changed so much over the years. So how do you stand out? Because I know the content is very rich, because once again, I've been reading it for a long time.
Well, I also, like you, like a printed magazine. And we publish 300 of them printed every month, and with an occasional vanity copies when we do an article relating to a particular advertiser. But it's just too expensive. And we run the magazine, it's not a charity, but we run it just at a break even, because the mission for me, this is not my livelihood. The mission was to produce this magazine because it's important and to make sure people could get it. So we have different, none of our people sit in the same office. They're all working from their homes. Before COVID, we were still working virtually, and everybody works together as a team to produce the content on a monthly basis on a shoestring budget, thanks to the generosity of a handful of advertisers, because I didn't want the magazine to be advertising central. I wanted it to produce the information and just have enough of a budget to break even. So I love print like you do, but it's a fortune. And we offer it if people want a subscription, but most of the people that I'm come in contact with, they want to read it online. And however, as you've seen, it is a full magazine online that just looks like a magazine that you can flip through the pages. And I like that format. So it's not, links here and links there. It looks just like a magazine, and you can read it. And I love getting, frankly, the printed versions every month, but the audience we can't possibly service this audience in any, and certainly we can't make it free. And my mission is to make it free. The people that benefit from this information, they don't need another bill to pay.
Well, and it's probably not good for our environment to unnecessarily be printing, since that comes from our trees. And so I'm conscious of that, and I actually don't. I try to be conscious of it. Some of the mail that we'll get that we don't want, we actually will start contacting them saying, "Please stop sending it to us. It's expensive for you, bad for the environment, and we don't want it." So I recently got a real beautiful little magazine from Amazon, and it's like a kids magazine where all the toys you can buy. So it reminds me of when my kids were little and we would get the Toys R Us magazine, but my kids aren't little anymore. So I took this expensive piece of this magazine and I threw it in the recycling bin. So I wish Amazon wouldn't have wasted their money sending it to me, because I don't have little kids that I'm buying for, unfortunately. But so it's a very different world. But let's talk a little bit about the format, because I know that, once again, as somebody that has read the magazine multiple times, and I need to go back out and subscribe to it because it's not coming into my inbox. So I want to make sure that I don't miss copies. But let's talk about some of the content. I thought it was interesting that you said it was for, special needs. I have an adult daughter now with Down syndrome, but I also I also have a son, and my son was considered gifted. So when you say exceptional, I sort of think about, you know, we're all exceptional, but it's interesting. It was interesting for me to have a daughter with intellectual disabilities and a son that was gifted intellectually, and to put those two pieces together, I found it fascinating, and it's not uncommon for families like mine. So, um, how did you tell us a little bit more about how you decide which articles are going to have the most impact for your readers because it's a big topic.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, since we've been around for a long time, and since our editor-in-chief and our primary editor are known throughout the community, and our editor-in-chief, Rick Rader, was actually just appointed to the President's Council on Disabilities. He's an internationally known figure in this business, and people send us content all the time. One of the things we've never struggled with is a lack of content, because there's so many issues that we cover. The Special Olympics sends us something every month. The military sends us something every month. We get things from law enforcement. We get individual readers. I mean, I think the term exceptional parent, in my view, obviously I didn't come up with it, I inherited it, but it's the idea that parents with a special needs member are tasked over and above a normal, if that's a paradigm parent's role, because many of these exceptional or disabled kids are going to be that way forever. So like in my family, where 21 years old, I left the nest and went off on my own. With many of our families, that never happens. And our mission is to try to give them good information on services, educational opportunities, different professionals that can help. The reason that, like you said, I like print magazines also, but it's so much easier to reference them online, to look at the past issues. And we devote certain issues to some of the larger concentrations like autism, and mobility challenges. We always have something on PTSD, because sadly, we lose a veteran a day to suicide. So that's a whole nother area. And so how do we do it? Every month, we know we're going to cover something relating to the military, and we know we're going to cover something relating to Special Olympics. After that, we theme our issues, whether it's employment or back to school or summer. Back to school is a little odd this year, but, financial planning, camps, different areas of focus. But Rick gets all the articles, and he vets them so that nothing goes in the magazine that hasn't been peer reviewed, because it's an educational, helpful magazine. So we sort through the data, and whatever Rick and Vanessa think are the salient topics, that's what goes in the magazine. And I'm happy to say that the content is abundant, but nothing goes in there without being looked at, to make sure that it's good information, helpful information, and we also accept, we have a handful of advertisers who are the reason we could stay in business, and they'll also solicit information for us. And if it makes it through the screening process, it shows up. So each magazine is a little different. And we have wonderful articles from people who are dealing with individual situations and tell us their stories and how they overcame certain obstacles. What happened if all of a sudden they have a mobility challenged member and they didn't really know how to change a house so that people can stay home. I mean, one of the things that Rick believes in, as I do, is that we want to keep people home no matter what. So
Well,
some
if
of
they
the,
stay home, right, right.
if possible, right?
Yeah.
And so,
And if they want to, right. Because,
yes.
yeah, because, I know that my daughter with Down syndrome, she does not live at home. She actually moved out. Yay. I proudly,
Right.
it's something she wanted to do. And her 1 year anniversary of living on her own in a supported apartment in Virginia is, she celebrated that yesterday. And
Wow.
the reality is that more adults with intellectual disabilities are moving out, but it also is a reality in that this is an expensive thing. My daughter does need supports. And so we found a wonderful provider, and she's on Medicare. There's a lot of steps. And for us parents, understanding all the different steps, even right now, I'm walking a path of, I'm being encouraged to take I don't want to say take guardianship, but to be my daughter's guardian, so that I can make decisions for her, because sometimes my daughter makes decisions that are not always in the best interest of her health. And so as you said, it can be very complicated for parents, and sadly my husband of 38 years has aged into dementia, and we are walking this path right now of, he wants to stay at home and I want him to stay at home, but it's very complicated because we're in late stages of this dementia, which is horrifying in a lot of ways for him and for us. And we're always, even though I'm an expert in disability inclusion and employment, you can't be an expert in all this stuff. Nobody knows everything. It's moving too fast. It's changing too much. And there's just so many moving parts to this, which is one reason why I enjoyed the magazine. I also want to make a comment. You mentioned post-traumatic PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, affecting our veterans. Suicide rates are up like we've never seen. But at the same time, this is not just veterans that have PTSD. We're estimating that a lot of Americans, when we come out of this COVID-19, will already are experiencing PTSD. Suicide rates are up, domestic abuse is up, and so PTSD is something that us humans get, and it also can surprise us because you think you're fine, and 2 years later, you start having symptoms that can be PTSD. So it's very complicated. We're learning a lot about our brains, and that's once again why the work that Len is doing is so important. So I wanted to make that comment, but I also wanted to ask you, Len, you said that it's free, and I appreciate that it's free, but of course, remembering that families that have members with special needs, we come from all economic backgrounds. And so not all people with, family members don't have resources, but I think that's why it's so important for us all to be supporting each other, because there are over 1 billion people with disabilities in the world. And 1 in 4 American adults identify as having a disability. So this is really powerful stuff. And we're a really big group. It can be very complicated, as you know, Len. So that's why, once again, I appreciated the work that y'all do. But do you mind talking a little bit more? I'm just curious about your advertisers. You don't have to say the names unless you want to, but give us some examples of people that are advertising in the magazine.
Well, thanks for asking that. I mean, the people that when I took over the magazine initially, I went to a couple of people who I knew would be, or I hoped would be supportive of the community, told them what the mission was, and asked them to come aboard, right? So the first person was Mass Mutual. They were the first people to come in, and
they're a client.
Yeah, and then they're all about special needs, and they were the first ones to come aboard. And when you have an anchor advertiser like that, then you can get other people that understand the issues. And one of the things that I learned from them was that the importance of having a financial planner or an attorney or an accountant that actually understands special needs planning, because you can make a lot of mistakes not thinking you're doing the right thing. So we were then able to pick up the American College, who certifies financial planners and lawyers and accountants, and teaches them this specialty of special needs planning, because it's its own branch. There are a lot of services you could lose by planning things wrong. There are a lot of mistakes you can make that don't need to be made. So the two big ones that came aboard were, because Mass Mutual supports the American College, so the two of them were our anchor tenants, and then to advertisers, right, not tenants. And then as time went on, we were able to bring on LJS Electric, that specializes in taking homes. If somebody wants to stay home and becomes mobility challenged, they can put in the stair elevators and the different electronic conveyor systems. And then we started bringing in some educational sources of interest to our readers. And it's been in that vein. We also have with the advent of COVID, we brought in a company called Bantech Sanitizing that actually teaches places how to keep their homes or their offices sanitized. Everybody and their brother said that they were going to be in the sanitizing business, and all that meant is that they would sell you more product. But there's actually a protocol that's established if you really want to keep your place safe. So these guys were perfect. And then we had the generosity of another company, Kaiser Benton Beds, that came aboard, also somebody of interest to the special needs community. When I reach out to people, it's kind of interesting on the sponsorship side of things. The calls last 5 minutes. Either they say, I get it, we're interested, we have a corporate warmth initiative or a product for your group, or I'm going to give you to a junior ad exec, in which case I say, thanks for your time, but I don't really need that. Because the people in this community, either they get it or they don't. And one of the things that I explain to our readers is you're getting it free because of the people that are providing content for the magazine. And, my hope is that you will pay attention to them because they're paying attention to you. But the biggest help has been educating people about services. We produce an issue we produce a resource guide. And when I took over, the resource guide was a list of services. But that's outdated because with Google, you don't need a list of services. So we turned it into how do you find services? So the people that support the annual guide are people who can direct you to services. Like you said earlier, if you have resources, this is not a problem. If you've got plenty of money.
Maybe. I would say it still is a problem because we don't know where the services are. So
well, that's right.
Blessed if you have some money and you're blessed, but still understanding the services, because the services are different in every single county. In the United States, if you look at it from a US perspective, they're different in every state, every county. You make a mistake, you can actually cause your loved one, or if you're doing it for yourself, to lose services. I have several employees with significant disabilities that work for me, and they live at home. They want to stay at home. People want to age in place. And if they do this wrong, they actually will lose caregivers. They could lose their home. I just want to agree with you. And then the understanding the services, and I'm pretty knowledgeable, and I still get worried about it. And I also want to make another point, as you were talking about your advertiser, Banatech, that does, helps us keep, our homes sterilized. Everybody wants to jump in and say, I'm the expert at that. But I like working with people that have been doing it for a long time, that are the experts. And I also, if somebody wants to support our community with advertising and stuff like that, I do think it's important for us to support those brands. And that's what I talk about a lot on the show, because if Huawei wants to make sure that they have tech for good and tech for all and connectivity and support people with disabilities and refugees, I'm going to support your brand. So our community tends to be very loyal towards the groups that support us. And I'm sure you're seeing that as well, Len.
Yes, absolutely. And the two areas that have been most educational for me is the financial planning mistakes that you mentioned that can be made by anyone. And when
Right.
when I first got involved and I met some of the people from American College, and they explained to me the clearly well-intentioned mistakes you can make that X out services, or the fact of the way that you think you're going to plan when you pass on, and you think it's a good idea to just put a bunch of money in a trust when in fact you should be buying life insurance. Different mistakes that can be made that, like to your point, could be disastrous. And then when we came upon the sanitizing, people think that cleaning is a science just like anything else. There's a protocol to be used. It's the right chemicals. How are they applied? Do they leave a residue and attract more dirt? What do you do about people moving in and out of the room? There are technologies now where at night you can have the surfaces coated, turn on UV lights, and in the morning everything will be sterile. It's not ridiculously expensive. But you need to understand, another thing I learned is that, most of these sanitizers are alcohol based, but the best sanitizers are hydrogen peroxide based, because it doesn't leave a residue and it doesn't create a sticky film. Hospitals have known that for years. So when I went with these guys to to one of the train stations in Newark and watched them do a review. And it was amazing how thorough they were, and things you wouldn't even think of. What do you put on the floor to coat it so it's impervious, so that the bacteria doesn't float, it doesn't soak in? It's a real science, and these guys, they know what they're doing. They've been doing clean rooms for 30 years. They get it. And if you there's certainly COVID notwithstanding, there's nothing wrong with being sanitized and hygienic. So I think going forward, you're going to see companies that care wanting to keep their places clean, because what the old vision of somebody taking a bucket and pouring some cleaner in, and that's what they clean everything with, that's not good science. So I've learned a lot from these people, and I think that our community benefits from these kind of advertising. And you're right. I encourage the people to support the people that help us, and it's been a nice symbiotic relationship.
I agree. And once again, talking about aging in place, we now have, well, I don't, the numbers have shifted, but over 70 million Americans that are over the age of 56. The baby boomers, the youngest baby boomers are 56 this year and getting older, and more, according to the AARP, we over the age of 65, 46% of us become disabled. That is going to impact our hearing, our sight, our mobility. And the baby boomers want to age in place, and we want to stay at home. I mean, once again, everybody gets to decide. Some people, they do want to move into a nursing home or assisted living because they want the social aspect of it. But most people want to stay at home. Most people want to age in place, and I know I do, and I know my husband does. And it's been a real intense experience walking this dementia with my husband, and also walking my daughter's health problems as she's gotten older. She's 33 years old now, and it sometimes it felt easier when my daughter was a little kid, when she was small, and I hover around her and smother her and try to keep her safe. And now she's a woman, and she doesn't always agree with me on how she should live her life, but it's also her life. And so I've been that. But I think that's why magazines like yours are very important to families. Let's talk a little bit about, do you mind talking about the demographics of your readership? I mean, once again, I've known about the magazine for years, and I'm sure others, but talk a little bit about who is, viewing, reading, partaking in the magazine.
Well, the magazine is primarily a national publication, and on our readership is, I would say, 10 to 15% professionals, people that provide services to the field, and 85% individual families. And it's been that way since we took over. We don't really focus on a particular area of the country, but I'm from the Northeast, so there's a larger concentration of people here just because I send it out to my network. But the Special Olympics also redistributes the magazine, so it's a pretty solid national publication, which is good for our advertisers, and also we get contributions from all over the country. So one of the things that you find is that people's experiences are not singular. So when somebody's gone through a crisis and they can share it with other people who, because they're on the far side of it, and somebody says, "Wow, that I'm just diving into this thing. I can follow that." So we've been able to harness talent and input from all over the country, and it's 85% by my best estimation families and 15% professionals.
And we've always been involved as a family with the Special Olympics. My husband used to coach. My daughter did cheerleading, swimming, basketball. She did a bunch of stuff. That's probably where I was introduced to it, through Special Olympics, because we're obviously big fans of Special Olympics. So, but the content, once again, is I think is very, very rich. So, you mentioned that people will make contributions, so individuals will contribute to the magazine because they believe in the content as well?
Yes, we get a lot of content from individuals, and more from individuals. Well, I guess it's kind of 50-50. We have a lot of professionals that send in information. If it's not informative and just self-serving, then obviously it doesn't
Right.
interest us. But more articles come in from individuals, and you got to remember, because we cover all ages, we have people experiencing different paradigms with respect to who they're caring for. And one of the biggest challenges, as you probably know, is when kids age out of the system and they get to be, they go from their pediatrician to their primary care doctor, but there's not a really great way to transition. And if the mental acuity is not the same as what the adult physician is used to dealing with, it presents some real challenges. So something that we've covered over and over again from many aspects is that transition from children to adult. And then, of course, as you know, as adults get older, and then you have the issue of dementia and Alzheimer's, they become again like children and require a whole level of care.
Right. But not everybody does that. There's only a percentage of the population that does. So I don't want to scare people, because I'm sort of hoping my daughter won't, even though a lot of, there's a percentage of people with Down syndrome that do have dementia and Alzheimer's. And even though my husband has dementia because he was hit by a drunk driver when he was a child. And he suffered a very, very, very bad traumatic brain injury. And so his dementia, unfortunately, is because of the traumatic brain injury. So I just want to point out, because I know a lot of people are paranoid about that, but there's still, it's not everyone with a disability will grow into that. I just want to make sure, Len, just because people get so nervous about that. I know I do. So.
No, you're absolutely right. And I was more actually addressing people who don't have a disability, but then age into Alzheimer's or dementia, and then require a kind of care that you never thought you would have to give. I mean, I experienced that myself with my own mother, and people are completely unprepared for that. And it's not the same kind of care you can give a child that you can just pick up and carry. And, the mobility. And the mobility issues, there are wonderful mechanical solutions for so many things, but if you don't know what they are or where they are, the home can be a much more dangerous place than it needs to be. And it can also, unless you're very strong and young and good at carrying heavy things, moving somebody from one place to another is not that easy a thing to do. But one of the things that I learned when I looked into mobility is the amazing things that people can do to your home, and the freedom that it can give people is really fascinating. So that's something that, I was thinking, first of all, I agree with you 100%. Not everybody becomes that way. I was thinking more of what happens when that occurs, and then you need somebody to tell you, this is how we do this is how we do that, because it's happened before.
I know. And we're just, you know what, Lynn, we just, as a parent of an adult with Down syndrome, that's something that a lot of my peers and my friends that we just get really scared about that. Once again, walking it right now with my husband, and not only the engineering things that he's mentioned, I'm sure y'all have covered this in your magazine, but the smart home devices. I know recently a group came into my daughter's apartment and they set up motion detectors on the doors just to keep her safe, and a doorbell, and there's thing that she can put on, they can put on her stove so that it's motion censored if nobody's been around the stove for 5 minutes, for example. The stove will shut itself off. And because we want her to be able to cook, but we worry about her getting distracted or forgetting, sort of like what her mom does. So these things actually can be good for all of us. But that's the kind of information that you will find in the magazine. Um, Len, I know that we're almost out of time, but let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned some of your wonderful corporate sponsors, and Mass Mutual, big fan of them anyway, but do you need more corporate sponsors? Would it be helpful to get more corporations involved in supporting the magazine?
Yes, we could use a couple of other supporters because COVID hit us hard, and some of the smaller companies that were generously supporting us just can't afford to do it because they're basically out of business. So I'm always looking for somebody either whose corporate warmth, plan supports special needs, or they have a product or service that benefits our community, or both, ideally. But yeah, thank you for asking. That is a daily process where we're always looking for corporate sponsors. And to your point about the electronics, that's opened up wonderful doors. I mean, not only those smart devices that keep you from setting fires and floods, also the fact that you can have surveillance. So that if in the old days, if you wanted to keep an eye on somebody, you had to be there. Now, if you have a good little Nest system or a Ring system, you can see it on your phone. And I know we had one of my clients, my professional clients, that his wife became completely disabled, and we were able to give him freedom of being able to see her wherever he was and talk to her. It used to be you could just see. Now you can converse, and it's those things are just wonderful additions.
I agree. And that's why, Amazon, Google, Honeywell, these smart device makers, anybody doing artificial intelligence, you want to help us age in place, go and support Exceptional Parent Magazine. People need to know about the products that you're providing and that you're creating them to keep us safe and allow us to age in place. So Len, tell the audience how they can find out more. How can they support Exceptional Parent Magazine? How can they subscribe to it? Tell us where to find it.
Thank you. All of the information about the magazine is on our wonderful website. It's called epmagazine.com. We have our press kit on there, our media guide. We have contacts to the various staff members that have done a wonderful job keeping us going. All the archive magazines are there, but epmagazine.com, there's a link on there for EP for free. And if you register, then every month you get a reminder that the magazine is available. And that's everything is on the website, all the contact information and a way to reach any of us. So I really think that the best thing that I can do as a result of this, which thank you for this time, is to let people know, go to epmagazine.com and become part of the community so that we can reach out to you every month and help in any way that we can.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate your very rich content. It's been very helpful to families like mine. And I appreciate the advertisers that are supporting you because, as we said before, us families, the ones of us really paying attention, we notice who supports us and who doesn't. And so more and more, we have to vote with our wallets, and we have to support the companies that support us. So, and that means supporting you too, Len. So thank you so much for your work. And I look forward to reading the magazine for many years to come. So thank you. And thanks to the audience. So as a reminder, epmagazine.com. I highly recommend it. Thank you, Len. Thanks to the audience.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
You too, Len.
It was nice.